स्लोली है, नाइस। आपको अपने काम करना तो आप करिए अपना। एंड यू ऑल्सो नो जय राधा माधव भजन, वेरी नाइस। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी, गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जय राधा गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी, गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जय राधा यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन, यमुना तीरवनचारी। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन, यमुना तीरवनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी, गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जय राधा यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन, यमुना तीरवनचारी। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन, यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन, यमुना तीरवनचारी। यशोदानंदन ब्रज हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामीति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Okay, so for next 15-20 minutes we'll just discuss today Bhagavad Gita 2.51. So let's chant this verse. कर्मजं बुद्धियुक्ता हि फलं त्यक्त्वा मनीषिणः जन्मबन्धा विनिर्मुक्ता पदं गच्छन्त्यनामयम्। कर्मजं बुद्धियुक्ता हि फलं त्यक्त्वा मनीषिणः जन्मबन्ध विनिर्मुक्तः padam gacchantyanāmayam.
padam gacchantyanāmayam.
Karmajam buddhiyukta hi
Karmadam buddhiyuktahi
phalam tyaktva manishinaha
phalam tattva manishinaha
janma bandha vinirmuktaha
janma bandha vinirmuktaha
padam gacchantyanāmayam.
padam gacchantyanāmayam.
So now any of you would like to chant? You would like to chant the verse? Yeah, try. So you can chant, then I'll repeat. You want to start? Yes.
Karmajam buddhiyuktahi
Karmajam buddhiyukta hi
phalam tattva manishinaha
phalam tyaktva manishinaha
janma bandha vinirmuktaha
janma bandha vinirmuktaha
padam gacchantyanāmayam
padam gacchantyanāmayam. Karmajam buddhiyukta hi phalam tyaktva manishinaha janma bandha vinirmuktaha padam gacchantyanāmayam. Yes, Prabhu, you want to chant?
कर्मजं बुद्धियुक्ता हि
Karmajam buddhiyukta hi
फलं त्यक्त्वा मनीषिणः
phalam tyaktva manishinaha
जन्मबन्धविनिर्मुक्ताः
janma bandha vinirmuktaha
पदं गच्छन्त्यनामयम्.
padam gacchantyanāmayam. Okay, so let's understand the meaning. Karmajam, due to fruitive activities. Buddhiyuktaha,
buddhiyukta
being engaged in devotional service.
being engaged in devotional service.
He,
He
certainly.
certainly
Phalam,
phalam
results.
results.
Tyaktva,
Tva
giving up.
giving up.
Manishinaha,
Manishinaha
great sages or devotees.
great sages or devotees.
Janma bandha,
Bandha
from the bondage of birth and death.
from the bondage of birth and death.
Vinirmuktaha,
Nirmukta
liberated.
liberated.
Padam, position.
Position.
Gacchanti,
Shanti
they reach. Anamayam,
Namayam
without miseries.
without miseries.
Okay, one of you read translation loudly.
By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of birth in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries by going back to God.
Yeah. So please listen very carefully as I read the purport. So and I'll ask the questions so that just to check how attentive you are, I'll ask the questions after reading. Okay. So this is very short purport. The liberated living entities belong to that place where there are no material miseries. The Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 14th chapter, 58th shloka says, Samashritaye padpallavam mahat padam punyayasho murarehe bhavam budirvat sapadam param padam 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 yad vipadam natesham. Meaning, for one who has accepted the boat of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is shelter of the cosmic manifestation and is famous as Mukunda or the giver of Mukti, the ocean of the material world is like the water contained in a calf's footprint. Param Padam, or the place where there are no material miseries, or Vaikuntha is his goal, not the place where there is danger in every step of life. Owing to ignorance, one does not know that this material world is a miserable place, where there are dangers at every step. Out of ignorance only, less intelligent persons try to adjust to the situation by fruitive activities, thinking that the resultant actions will make them happy. They do not know that no kind of material body anywhere within the universe can give life without miseries. The miseries of life, namely birth, death, old age, and diseases, are present everywhere within the material world. But one who understands his real constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Lord, and thus knows the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, engages himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Consequently, he becomes qualified to enter into the Vaikuntha planets, where there is neither material miserable life nor the influence of time and death. To know one's constitutional position means to know also the sublime position of the Lord. One who wrongly thinks that the living entities To know one's constitutional position means to know also the sublime position of the Lord. One who wrongly thinks that the living entity's position and the Lord's position are on the same level is to be understood to be in darkness and therefore unable to engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. He becomes a Lord himself and thus paves the way for the repetition of birth and death. But one who understands that his position is to serve transfers himself to the service of the Lord at once becomes eligible for Vaikuntha Loka. Service for the cause of the Lord is called Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, or in plain words, devotional service to the Lord. Okay, so you understood this? 50%, 60%? How much you understood?
Understood it, but like retaining might be an issue.
Yeah. How much? 20%, okay. Okay, so in the question and answer format, okay. So there was one name of Krishna called Mukunda. What is the meaning of that?
Liberator, provider of mukti.
The one who provides mukti. Right? Like Krishna has given different names based on different circumstances. Right? Like Damodar. So Damodar means whose vest is tied by a rope. That's the meaning Damodar. Makhanchor. And then so many different names. No? And then here the name given is Mukti, basically Mukunda, who is the provider of liberation, right? Okay, so another question is, there was an analogy of calf's footprint. What was that? So there was an example given of
Liberation, it was stating that liberation is like very big ocean, but it can be converted to a small calf footprint. So that it can be easily crossed over.
how that can be converted.
Devotional service it was.
Right. You remember this?
That I remember. I didn't quite get that exactly. I thought that the cast footprint, the water contained in that, would be the material part, whereas compared to the overall, the vastness of the spiritual.
Okay. Yeah. So actually, he answers quite well. So like this material world is like an ocean, right? The full ocean, and to cross beyond material ocean is very difficult. It's like, can you imagine crossing the ocean by swimming? It's not possible, no matter how much expert swimmer we are, isn't it? So, but when one takes shelter of Mukunda or Krishna by engaging in devotional service, by his devotional service, then the whole vast ocean becomes as small as water contained in the calf's footprint. How big is the calf's footprint? It's small, right? So just imagine, and crossing this much of water is not a big deal, isn't it? So what it means is a mighty task become very easy when one takes shelter of the Lord, right? Okay, very good. Now, okay, any other thing which confused you or anything else? We'll just move with the flow. Anything else you want to ask before we? Okay, so basically, okay, we are going to discuss this verse for the next 10-15 minutes. That's all. We'll try to wrap up. So now in Bible, actually there's a story. I'm not sure you heard of the story of prodigal son. Can you come little? This camera is actually hindering my view. Yeah, this prodigal son. Have you heard of any chance? Prodigal son, you heard? Yeah. So actually there was a very, very wealthy man. He had lots of riches, and he had two sons. One was very obedient, and another was not so obedient. Right? So the not so obedient son, he asked one day, he approached his father and he said, "My dear father, I don't want to live with you anymore. I am a grown-up adult now. Give my share of my part of wealth, right? So, and then I want to be live separate on my own. I want to take my own decisions. I want to enjoy life, right? That's a very natural tendency we see in the youth, right? So we want to do our way. We want to go our way. So that's what he requested. But father said, no, this world is actually full of cheaters, right? As soon as people will look at your money, you have money, everyone will come behind you, right? You will have like rosy friends, there'll be thieves and so many exploiters will come after you just to snatch your money. So he cautioned him a lot, but then, in that hot-blooded son, he said, no, there's no room for excuses. I don't want any more advices. Okay, I'm done. So just give me my share. So his father gave, like with the heavy heart, he gave half of his wealth to this son, right? So as soon as he got wealth, imagine what he would have done. He would have spent, he would have invested or what? What do you think in such a mood? Yeah, he just got along with his friends and did a lot of different night outs, parties and drinking and everything, and just, and that wealth was very, very, because if you put your wealth in such a place, it gets, it becomes null and void very soon, right? So then, and then there were friends, like good weather friends, like all came together, because free liquor, right? So, but soon when his wealth actually got over, then all these friends, they disappeared, right? And he became just a beggar on the street. And then when he was in such a petty situation, he was crying on the street. So then he was looking for some survival. And then someone just taking pity on him and gave him a job. I know what kind of job that was. It was to feed hundreds kind of thing he gave. Okay, feed these pigs, and whatever is remaining, you can also eat that. Same thing. And he was just, he was such a pathetic situation. And he was coming from such a wealthy background. And that felt like he was totally, devastated at that time. He said, I was living in palaces. Just by becoming, separate from my father, I am going through this situation. Then what happened is, someone from his village, he identified, hey, you are son of so-and-so. And he carried him to his home. As soon as this news came to his father immediately came with bullock cart and took him and said, today, and he was actually crying. And he said, today you are king of this house. And then by looking at his father's love, such unconditional love, he was even crying all the more. He said that I kicked my father and still he loves me so much. So this story comes in Bible of the prodigal son. It's a nice analogy that how much the Supreme Lord loves us, right? Even when we leave him like that. So when all of us are in paradise, in kingdom of God, then we are happily living with him. But then just to enjoy separately from Krishna, we want to take our own decisions. We don't want to get him involved in our life. So we come to this world. And then we are forced in such a circumstances where we are like eating like that pig's floor, right? Struggling in such a pathetic situation. Just imagine a son of God going through such a pity situation. But Krishna is such a merciful person that in every life he follows us, he comes with us. As how does Krishna follow us or accompany us? You know, in every life. Any guesses? Huh? Parents, okay. Any guesses? How does Krishna accompany us? Actually, as Paramatma, as super soul, right? So there are two terms, Atma and Paramatma. So Paramatma is Supreme Lord Himself, who accompanies in every body. Even if we go to a dog's body, Lord is also present in dog's body as Paramatma. It's not that God has become dog. No, He just accompanying the soul and helps him, gives him good advice, so that one day he can turn his face towards God. Right? So in every life situation, in every body, Krishna is helping us. Now this is the meaning of actually yoga. Why we are quoting this story is making this reunion again with God is called yoga. Uniting with God is called yoga. Right? It comes from a Sanskrit word yujya, which means uniting. So now this world is talking about, this sloka is talking about, you see, the bhakti yoga or buddhi yoga. At the end you can see this. So, karma yoga or buddhi yoga, right? So now there are different terms you might have heard, like Sankhya yoga, Ashtanga yoga, karma yoga, buddhi yoga, jnana yoga. Any other yoga you heard? So these are different terms, right? Because there are these different methods of how you reunite with God, right? So now in the previous verses of second chapter, there's a talk about Sankhya yoga. Sankhya yoga means by analytical study of the world, you analyze things around you, and then you reach a conclusion of that who is the creator, right? So you analyze that this is material, this is spiritual, this is gross, this is subtle, this is temporary, this is permanent. Like that you analyze everything and you reach a conclusion that everything the creator, the gods is the creator. That is the Sankhya philosophy or the Sankhya yoga method, right? Then there is something called karma yoga. What is karma yoga? Based on what karma we do? Attending God by karma, okay. Yes, go. Yeah.
Whatever we do, we should devote that, dedicate that to in whatever action we do.
Okay, whatever action we do, okay. Any other, yes, you want to share?
Based on whatever thing is right, just to do that.
Okay.
Achieve to the ultimate goal.
Okay, goal, okay. Yes, bro. You want to share what is karma yoga?
I just know what we are doing.
But see, it's not that every action is a karma yoga, right? Let's say a person, let's say butcher, killing someone. Can it be called karma yoga? Let's say a person drinking liquor. Can it be called karma yoga? No, right? So it's not that just you do whatever you want and it becomes karma yoga. Right? So our scriptures, they prescribe, there are three kinds of duties that can be done. Right? So we have something called prescribed duties. Then the second kind of duties like the capricious duties. Means you whimsically do whatever you want. Like I gave some examples of drinking liquor and different sinful activities. Right? Those are whimsical activities. And third is like you just don't do anything. Like it's an inaction. You don't do your duty properly. Right? So actually the fundamental theme, how many of you have actually read Bhagavad Gita anytime? Like full Bhagavad Gita? Ever read Bhagavad Gita? No? Okay. One chapter of Bhagavad Gita? One you have read. First chapter? So the main theme actually of Bhagavad Gita, which can be actually a takeaway for all of you from today's session, is that and if you see Bhagavad Gita, this is the main theme that comes always, which is being detached from your work. Okay, so this is a fundamental principle of suffering and becoming peaceful in this world. So more we are detached from our work, or to become accurate, more we are detached from the fruits of our work, right? More peaceful we will be. So suffering in this world are simply caused to that degree more we have attachment to the fruits of our work. Right? So this is very fundamental principle. If you can apply this in your life, on and on Bhagavad Gita continuously hammers on this point. Krishna is asking Arjuna that don't care about winning or losing. Right? So now there's a famous words. So it is said that in India, if you wake someone from sleep, and ask him, okay, what is Bhagavad Gita? So he'll quote this verse. You know which verse is that? What is Sanskrit? You know that? Karmarne vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Right? So karm karte jao, bas. So this is actually, it's not, the meaning is not karm karte jao.
Yeah, without expecting.
So the meaning karmarne vadikaraste, you have the rights to perform your duties. Meaning that your prescribed duties, they are meant for you. No one is snatching them from you. You do your duties. Ma phaleshu kadachana. But you don't have rights over the results of your actions. Right? So now, if you ask anyone, right, they only quote this 1/4 of the shloka. That just do your duties. So it means someone, let's say, working 14 hours, 18 hours, 20 hours. Is he karmi yogi? No. It's not that you simply work like asses foaming in your mouth and then that becomes a yoga per Bhagavad Gita. No. Bhagavad Gita clearly says that karmarne vadhikaraste, you have rights to perform your duties, ma phaleshu kadachana, but you are not entitled to the results of your duty, actions. Ma karm phala sangaste te asangastasya karmani. That's somehow, this is the verse. Okay, so meaning is, so for example, if you are a student, right? So now a student has a right to perform so what Bhagavad Gita is recommending? For example, let's take a case of a student. So Bhagavad Gita is recommending that he does his studies sincerely. When it is time for preparation, he prepares nicely. Whatever courses, side books, whatever needs to be referred, he properly follows that. But when it comes to the result, then he totally surrenders and offers it to Krishna. He can top, he can be he can get distinction, and he can fail. But it's not other way around. It's not that you justify your results. For example, you are sleeping throughout the year. At the end, we failed, and we justify that. Okay, anyway, results are not in my hand. Right? So the principle of Bhagavad Gita is that being detached from your work. Right? So if we apply this, even if it in our business or work or our studies, it's powerful principle. You can always be very, very peaceful even when you perform your duties. Right? Our mostly problems, let's say a person always thinking of the appraisals, right? He forgets, he's not focusing, let's say software engineer, right? He's not focusing on coding the things, right? He's simply focused on how to get the appraisal ticking, right? But then, let's say, but if he does his duty properly, meaning that he focuses on whatever work is assigned, whatever new skills are to be learned, the coding hands-on, whatever, right? Then he can be very, very peaceful and also relish the process. Not only the results, can also relish the process, right? So this is, so on and on you'll see, like Krishna is telling, okay, be equipoised. In good and in bad, be equipoised. Because what happens is when something good happens, right? We become like, we leave the ground, right? We become so jubilant. And when something bad comes, people just go to terrace and jump. Like either way extreme situations. Have you seen in this world? When people are they are happy about something, like they'll go drink like anything, right? Extreme situation. Then when they are sad, they'll take another extreme steps, right? You see so many different, like we see students in Kota, we see all around, right? It's not uncommon, right? People, they suicide, they get into drugs and so on, right? Because extreme steps. But Gita is talking about being equipoised, being equanimous, right? So this is one powerful principle. So if we can apply this in our life, that will be excellent, right? So for example, so we'll just wrap with Prabhupada example. So Srila Prabhupada, when he was, like before he took sannyas, he was a householder, right? He was a married person, he had his family, he had his sons. And by profession, he was a pharmacist, right? And he would also make his drugs, his own medicines. So then there was a time in Allahabad and different places where his business was really booming like anything. It was very well, progressing very well. But then again, eventually what happened was, it took a downturn and then there were heavy losses, right? But Srila Prabhupada, both in profit and in losses, he was totally equipoised. Actually, he took it as an indication of Lord. When the business got into losses, he took it as an indication of the Lord and he just surrendered to the Lord. So a devotee of Krishna, you would never find him like, so more we follow the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, more we become, like we get that internal mood or internal disposition of being equipoised, right? Because it's very, very natural in outside world, we see people going to extremes, right? So this verse is talking about, now this, it also talked about how in this world we have dangers at every step, right? It's so just filled with dangers, right? For example, today, like you might have read the news, like there was a crash in Nepal, right? How many of you read the news? Plane crash in Nepal, right? There's a plane crash and all the 72 people, they died, right? They would not have even imagined, right, when they took off, that this might be the fate in next 1 hour, right? And that's what, it's not about that plane crash. Like every now and then we see like dangers at every step. We can feel, isn't it? Like even someone dying inside bathroom, someone dying just sitting in the chair, crossing the road and then accident happened, right? So this world is filled with dangers. But what happens is when we take shelter of the Lord, it's not that our consciousness goes beyond those dangers, right? It's like saying that, for example, if you go to Himalaya, so what is that prominent thing you are going to see there? Snow, right? So if you go to a library, what is the prominent thing you are going to see? Books, right? So similarly, just like a library, it's called, in Hindi it is called Pustakalaya. So you see a lot of pustak, you see a lot of books there. Similarly, Himalaya. What is Himalaya? Him means snow. So who is the reservoir of snow, right? Similarly, Krishna stamps this world as Dukkhalaya, meaning where dukha are the prominent, miseries are prominent. So what we are going to see in this world? Miseries, right? So it's not, when we take shelter of Krishna, it's not that our miseries will go away. Meaning that it's not that your problems, for example, a bad health, a bad boss or things like that would go away. They will still be here, but our consciousness goes to a next level, right? So the thing which was looking like prominent in our life will see some purpose in our life. Just like going to a Himalaya, if you go just like that, you'll, oh, so much snow, I feel so much, it's so much chilled cold here, right? But if you go with a purpose, say trekking or something like that, then even then there'll be snow, isn't it? Snow would still be there, but your purpose of trekking would overpower that chilled snow, isn't it? Same thing, when in our life, when we take shelter of Krishna, we get a purpose in our life. When we get that purpose, right? When we get that purpose, even the same situation, same problems would look very, very small, right? So that's how we'll end today. The theme of this word, Yeah, theme of this verse was to take shelter of Krishna so that the entire world becomes as small as the water contained in calf's footprint. Okay. Thank you so much. Do you have any comments or questions? For 2-3 minutes we can discuss. Any realization or experience what I just spoke about?
You said that the Atma and the Paramatma are different.
Yes, sir.
In one
Hmm.
particular individual.
Yeah.
So, how are they different? Because I have been till now considering that the Atma is kind of like a smaller version or a part of the Paramatma, right? So, when you specifically say that they are two different entities, so like, how exactly does that?
Yeah. So Bhagavad Gita, in 16th chapter, there's a shloka that comes, Updrishta Anumanta cha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara Paramatmeti Chapyukto, which means that Updrishta Anumanta cha, the super soul has got two qualities. Updrishta, he is overseer, and Anumanta, he is permitter, he is sanctioner. Right? So anything, let's say if we lift our hand, right? So and a soul cannot do anything on its own without being sanctioned, the actions being sanctioned by the Lord. So what happens? Let's say I wish to lift my hand. Okay. So super soul sees, okay, does this person has the karmas to lift his hands immediately? Okay, he has got karmas. Okay, allow him, lifts. So in a fraction of a second, this calculation is done. Right? Let's say a person gets paralysis, right? Then he wants to lift his hand, but no sanction, karma exhausted, right? So super soul is like he's present in every body, but he's a common sanctioner. And then, for example, let's say if you have got a plot of land, right? You know, okay, what is how much square, what all is the dimension, where is the location, you know about your plot. But if, let's say, a government or a king, he knows like every plot properly, isn't it? He knows, okay, which plot belongs to whom. So similarly, super soul, though he is present in every body, but he knows every body fully. But let's say you might not be knowing what is going on in my body, right? You are like, it's like a local variable, right? So you are only aware of what's going on, the consciousness within your body. But super soul is aware of all the full consciousness of the entire existence. It's like a global variable in the software language. Does that help? Yeah.
Out of the box questions, maybe some random questions.
Sure, 1 or 2 minutes. Yeah, please.
So I'll be like asking a paradox regarding God. So there are three statements regarding God. One is he has the potential to treat everything exactly the way he wants. And the next statement is he is full of mercy. And the third statement is everything happens exactly the way he wants. But like we can see, especially from the eating habits, the lion who eats deer. So my question is, if he is that full of mercy, why is the creation is like that? And if he has the potential, why he doesn't change it? And then everything is happening as per him. So why he isn't willing to change all these things? So each of his statements contradicts each other. Making a proof that God doesn't exist, or maybe the statements that we're deriving, that characteristics are not that they should be, some sort of false assumptions.
Okay, so my understanding in this is, so for example, let's say you talked about mercy factor, right? And like God being knower of everything, and he sees a deer being killed by a tiger, right? So actually, yes, a person, God himself is fully independent and fully complete also. He does not need us for his own enjoyment. That's the meaning of completeness, right? Yeah, basically, he's not dependent on anything external. For example, we might be dependent on so many different people, things like that, for our enjoyment, right? But God is supremely complete. There's a word called Atma Ram. Atma Ram means fully satisfied in himself. That is the meaning, right? Still, God creates so many living entities. This creation happens. This is also a mercy of the Lord. It's not that he needing us, but it's that because he knows that exactly how. So for example, in our current state, all of us are suffering, right? But just to show us the mercy, Krishna creates this entire creation and then gives us different opportunities like the temples, devotees, scriptures, and so on, different guidance, so that we can come to him, right? Now the food cycle, right? This tiger eating deer and we eating grasses and so on, right? So now this food cycle is the Jivo Jivasya Jivanam, right? This is how this thing is created. Now, when actually a person who is learned, who has knowledge, his purview of mercy is not on the bodily platform alone, right? It's a deer being killed by tiger. On the bodily platform, it looks so cruel and right, it's just devastating his life. But on a platform of soul, nothing is actually changing. Soul remains as is, right? And the body is anyway dead. So the body, the matter, is anyway dead, and soul is not going to change, right? So it's just that when deer leaves its body, it gets promoted to the next phase in the transmigration, right? So there are total 84 lakh species of life simultaneously existing, right? And then there's a natural cycle in the nature. There's a natural cycle that, for example, after cow, one gets a birth as a human being, right? So there's a definite cycle that after deer you get this. So by changing his body, he's actually getting promoted to a next phase, closer to the human form. So in this transmigration, just to conclude, the human form is actually the only form where you get the exit from this cycle, right? So all the animals, they are in the natural law of transmigration. No karma actually gets into tiger. Like karma actually applies only to human beings. It's not meant for deers, tigers, and so on, right? So when a tiger is killing deer, it's actually helping him in his natural cycle, right? But we cannot go and kill the tiger. It's like we accrue karma that way. Yeah? Maybe we can discuss that. Any other point, ladies? Okay, thank you so much. Hare Krishna. So we are going to have a meeting here at 7:30. So you can take darshan, and darshan will close at 8 o'clock. Right?